Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod Barbecue. On this episode, we've got Mr. Mike Austin, our very own digital content director. Now, Mike has been in the car space for a lot of years, knows his stuff, but more so than that, he's also an avid enthusiast with a really cool collection of, well, eclectic vehicles. So before we get into Mike and we start talking about him and what his views are on cars and culture moving forward, we're going to pick a car from our Hemmings Classifieds, of which we have over 25 to 30,000 classifieds, well, at any given time, plus, of course, our online auction. Now, as you'll see, Mike's got some pretty cool taste. So I wanted to pick something that I feel Mike would like. Now, I could totally be off base with this choice, but I don't think I am. But who knows? We'll see. Anyway, the car that I've chosen for Mike is a 1972 International Scout. It is baby blue with cherry bombs and white wheels, a manual, and a spare tire carrier out back. It's pretty cool. I think it's just odd enough for Mike to go, yes, I would drive that. It's not a Bronco. It's not a Blazer, but yet it's kind of that obscure offering that are really starting to pick up in popularity. So we're going to throw this out there to you guys to take a look at, and we'll be back in a few seconds with Mr. Mike Austin. Everybody, this is a very special episode. And I know I say that about every episode, but this one is super special. Why? I'm going to tell you. Because we have Mr. Mike Austin, our very own digital content director and the fixer of Hemming. So when there's a problem, we go, hey, Mike, what do we do? And then Mike acts as the liaison between digital and print and video and podcast. So he's the guy when we have a problem we go to, and he fixes it. But he is also one hell of a car guy, as you could probably tell from the oddball mixture that's sitting behind him. How you doing, Mike?
Pretty good, thanks. Those are nice things to say. Yeah, I'm doing all right.
Good.
I'm in my garage, which I didn't do. A year ago, I wrote a piece about going into the garage a half hour every day, and I got the whole transmission out of my Alfa Romeo, took it to the shop, put it back in, which was a pretty big project for me. This year, I was like, it's cold, it's super pandemic, I don't want to go out there, it's a mess, I haven't done anything. So now I'm finally back in it, and it feels good.
Well, it cracks me up because, so go through your collection right now, because this is when, everybody out there pretty much knows, I'm an American car guy, and I just like big V8s and stuff like that. What is behind you? Because you have one that's kind of raucous and one that's, tiny itty-bitty. What's going on there?
So this one right here is the Honda Beat. This is my forever car. It's not, it's
really?
It's a 10-footer. And I keep telling, soon I'm actually going to give it a light refresh and, buy wheels that cost half as much as the car because it needs some TE37s. So this is a Honda Beat. It's a Japanese K car, which is their class of microcars. They're limited in dimensions of engine and overall size. And, it's a 660cc 3-cylinder. So they're limited to 66 horsepower. They're not limited by torque. They're limited to 66 horsepower and 660 cc's, and they're about 10 feet long. And in 91, the year this is, the first year of it, they had just changed the regulations. So Honda had their sporty mid-engine convertible, Suzuki made the Cappuccino, and AutoZone and Mazda made this gull-wing door thing called the AZ1. So there were three sports cars for 5 years. And then, they sort of petered away. So now K cars are all vans or little SUVs. But there was this brief period where they made sports cars. And this is also the last car that Soichiro Honda signed off on.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, it's tiny, it's weird. It's the engine, the steering wheel's on the wrong side. I love it.
So I love the fact that my Honda VFR motorcycle, has a larger engine in every capacity than the car that's sitting behind you. That cracks me up. So yeah, but conversely, next to it, you've got a Camaro with a 5.7 in it.
Yeah, LT1. So the whole displacement of the Honda is smaller than one cylinder displacement of the Camaro.
That's pretty hilarious. And
this has been in our family since new, and that's the thing. I think. I grew up in Michigan, and we had a GM van and a GM pickup the whole time. Very much like a Lansing is it's a GM town, so it was definitely like grew up in like a middle of American car, in that meat and potatoes. We can go into the Camaro more, but my background is American cars. I think it's kind of interesting where, you think of me as more eclectic. But yeah, I started right in the heart of, it's got a V8. It's, here's what the small block you can hear it a block away, and which, if it's Chevy, Ford, or Mopar. And then I think I got into, I worked at the car magazines. You get exposed to more stuff, and then you just drive everything. So you start looking for weird stuff. And that's what leads you to Japanese microcars.
I think it's great, dude. I love the juxtaposition of the Camaro and that. And I think the other part, so if you guys haven't seen it, Mike does a weekly auction show for Hemmings where he goes through all the cars that are highlighted in our auction. And it's actually pretty amazing because the fact of the matter is that they go up and down, but you could see where Mike's tastes vary because it's like, again, beat Camaro, but then he also records it from his Volkswagen van.
Yeah.
Which I love. So how did the van come about?
The van was, I just got this, we have a kid, so she's going up on 3 years old. So it was like, okay, it's going to be harder to fly. Road trips are in our future. And at the same time, I was kind of picking up the vibe of van culture growing. And I always liked the VWs. And then, there were new pop tops. So I spent like months, I'm sure you do this with cars too, where you just sort of like are looking and diving in and seeing what's out there. And I was like, I want to get like a new pop top. And then Mercedes came out with theirs, which is based on an existing kit. And I was like, oh my God, okay, maybe we like make a stretch and get this thing. And so, but we were like, okay, we want a van. We want to try a van, see what we're going to do. And it was like, let's take one more pass through the VWs. And my wife was like, I've always wanted a VW. I was like, I did not know you felt that strongly. So then like pretty quick, we get the VW. And the idea is I have this great job at Hemmings where I could sometimes work from anywhere. So it's like, well, we got this van.
Yeah.
Let's get out, explore the world. Well, I can't exactly work from a coffee shop while my wife and my daughter go to a museum right now. So, but that's going to come back. So that's the idea behind the van. And with that, it was like, all right, I want to do some kind of clip show or recap show. So we got into like, well, let's talk about the auctions. That's fun. And it was like, well, I want to do it from the van because if I'm traveling, I can do it every time. Like I can keep that consistency. I don't have to go, oh wait, I'm not in the studio this week. Let's make the van the studio. To date, it's only been in the back of my driveway. But that was the idea behind the video in the van, and the van itself was live the world. I also have all my lights are motion.
Oh, see,
all my lights are motion sensors, so let me fix that.
See, this is great. This is the nice part about doing this stuff with friends, right? Because like I don't know if everybody can see like this is where we play with backdrops and everybody's like, where should I be? Where should I sit? So Mike's like, I'm gonna go in the garage. Stoner every now and then sits in his garage. I'm in my office, and so you never know what you're gonna get on the barbecue, which is actually pretty fun. But I love the fact that your tastes vary so much, and that you know, being in Michigan, you kind of have to have a muscle car or some form of American power, right?
You got to speak the language at least, yeah.
Yeah. So what do people? What's the reactions when you tool around in the beat? Like, are people like, what the hell is that little thing?
Honestly, I'm always a little bit disappointed because I think maybe because it's silver or maybe because people don't pay attention, but like it does not get as many stares as I want it to get.
Really?
I thought it would just be like, yeah, I thought it'd be like driving a clown car where like everyone's staring at it, but no, mostly people don't notice it. You get a few weird looks. You definitely don't get any like, you don't get any like anti-import sentiment.
Well, that's
at
good.
Least I wouldn't. I think it's people love cars, and I think they've realized like everything's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think so. I think if this was 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I'd say fine. You'd probably get a little of that, microcar / import car, whatever the case is. But now, I think with what we see in television, what we see in movies, what we see in print, they're so commonplace now, and the internet has made everything such a smaller place. So if anybody wants to, like, if I would have seen that 15 years ago on the street, I would have been like, what the hell is that? Right? Where now you're kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. Let me just find out what that is. You just type it in.
That goes both ways too, though. Like, I think everybody loves. I mean, it's hard to not appreciate a Camaro. Third gen or fourth gen is what I'm familiar with. But even if we're going like outside of classic era, in young timer stuff, and there's like Fox bodies. If you don't appreciate a Fox body, you don't like cars. It doesn't matter what you're into.
Right.
I had a conversation with a buddy the other day who lives in LA, and he said something like, how many Asian guys own Grand Nationals? And I'm like, a lot more than you think, I bet.
A lot more than you think. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
He was Asian, too. He wasn't talking smack on Asian people. He was...
No,
but he was talking about,
SoCal
car culture. It's like, dude, Grand Nationals are hot everywhere.
That's just, I think if a car is cool, right, a car is cool. And if you think it has a personality to it, other people are going to think it has a personality to it. I mean, Hemmings sponsored a car show up here in the Bay Area a couple of weeks ago, and it was great. Like the juxtaposition of cars. We had a Pagani, like a full carbon Pagani, that was parked next to like a box Chevy, and then we had a Ferrari, like a 488 Pista, parked next to a 4Runner. And so I love that when you kind of stumble upon that. Like your garage was exactly what that car show was. Like the coolest little micro cars. And what was the one with the gull-wing doors that you said was there?
The AutoZom AZ1.
Right. So we had one of those there. And I freaked out because I was like, look at it. It looked like a little car that I could pick up with my hand and just go boom, 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 and just kind of move it along, But it also looks like that thing has got to be a hoot to drive. It has to be a riot.
Oh, yeah. The thing is, the thing I found, like the Camaro aside, which is part of when I'm grappling with the Camaro. So I have a 4-car garage, and it's like, oh my God, that's a dream. But I have 5 cars. And I know a lot of people, Musto and Stoner being 2 of them, would be like, oh, that's not a problem. And it's like, no, I want them all ready at hand.
Yeah.
So I've been parking one out, and at first it was like, we're not going to daily the Eurovan because we don't want to put the wear and tear on it. It turns out we don't do that much, it's not that hard on it because we don't do that much daily, and when we do, it's not really hard driving. So I'll probably park out the Saab so that I can have the Alpha.
Oh, right. Okay. So yeah, we forgot about those. So tell everybody about the Alpha. What Alpha do you have and what Saab do you have? Because they're both quite obscure.
I have an 87 Alfa Romeo Spider. It was my oldest sister had a Graduate. So this was like my earliest cool car memory was my sister had an Alpha, and it left a mark on me. It was like, these things are, they're beautiful. And same thing, like I've grown to love it. I was like, I'm going to drive this for a few years, keep working on it, and then I'll let it go. And every time it's like, that car brings the biggest smile to my face. You take it out, people look at it, they're like, nice car, you feel good in it. It's, you're sitting sort of on it, not in it. And it only has, I got it from the first owner who kind of neglected it. It sat for a while. It only has 20,000 miles on it.
Oh my God. So out of everything that you have, is the Alpha still your happy place? Like if you get in a bad mood or whatever the case is, you're like, I'm driving this as opposed to that?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with like where I live. I don't really have a driving road. So if you're going to go out on an errand, the Alpha's like, it's an in-between, right? It's a little harder to drive than the Camaro. It's a little slower, but it still has like creature comfort in the compliant ride. And like the Honda is a blast, but it's a little buzzier, it's a little tinnier. Mm-hmm. But the Alpha, the reason why I mentioned the Alpha was the Alpha and the Beat, unlike the Camaro, is they are a blast to drive because you can go flat out all the time.
Right.
Like the Honda, it's like a 10-second to 60 car if you like nail a shift at redline. So to get up to 40 miles an hour, you're floored through like 3 gears.
Yeah, but that's not different than my Wagoneer. My Wagoneer is like a 10.6, and I think what's even funnier is like my 79 Trans Am with a 6.6 liter 403 cubic inch bid block is rated at 10.2 0 to 60. Right?
Yeah.
So
so here's the thing though, and this is, I want you to tell me how the Trans Am is, because this is what the Camaro sat for years, and I pulled it out of storage and actually took it to a shop to change all the fluids and made them do the spark plugs too, because you don't want to do LT1 spark plugs. And I knew there's like, okay, this is a 6-second car. Maybe the best magazine tests were like 5.5. a Chevy, those 3-row SUVs, like a Buick Rendezvous. It's not the Rendezvous. Anyway,
Yeah.
a Ford Explorer is faster than the Camaro, quicker than the Camaro right now. So, but you drive it and you hit the gas and you're like, this feels twice as fast because you have all
Torque,
that displacement and all that torque. So is the Pontiac like that? You're like, dude, this is the fastest 10 seconds I've ever felt.
Yeah, it very much is, because there is like, it only literally the Pontiac, my Trans Am only makes like 195 horsepower or something like that, but it makes 340 pound-feet of torque. So when you jump on it, you do get this surge of power. Now it's not like it's not violent. I mean, your Camaro makes what is it 275 or 320?
275,
like
and then I have an intake on it, so I mean maybe it's 285, but it's 275 from the factory.
Okay, so 275 horsepower with 300, whatever it makes of torque, 350 pound-feet of torque at least, I would think, is...
No, it's right at like, it's 290 or 300.
Okay, but through a manual transmission is a beast of a car. Now, a lot of it is also down to the gearing. So, I mean, when I was growing up, those cars were everywhere, and they were the perfect kind of donut machine, burnout machines. That's why the LT1 was such a great motor. The other part is the longevity of that motor. That is a 300,000-mile motor if maintained properly. Like, every New York City taxi cab have one. Every fleet services company that had a Caprice had an LT1 in it. I mean, they're phenomenal motors. But the other part is that car itself, that generation of F-body, it hasn't clicked yet with people as to actually how good of a car it actually is from a driving perspective.
So yeah, this is what I grapple with. Is like, okay, I'm telling myself I'm going to keep the Beat forever. The Alpha I'm kind of hanging on to. It's my wife's favorite of the three. The Camaro's the odd one out. All right, well, and this is before I got to Hemmings and was like, wait, I can make content with this. Like, I can work on the suspension and do stories about it. But then I drive it and I'm like, this thing drives totally modern. It's like plenty fast. I put SS wheels on it, which is like a 270 and tires, which is a 275
looks
tire.
Looks great. Yep.
It's like, every time I go into a roundabout, because again, I live in Michigan, that's the best corner you'll get. Every time I go into a roundabout, I'm like, you didn't enter fast enough. Like, it's just got a ton of grip. It's got way more grip than anything else I own. Like, it's hard to believe that this thing is 26 years old, the way that it drives.
But that's the sweet spot, right? That is the sweet spot between analog and kind of electronic. And that's why, like, so I drive, like, I have my 96 Bronco that I drive every day. And that is, it still feels like a truck, but I don't have 1,000 electronics, like, driving me crazy. That thing still drives beautifully, still feels like a modern car, is just as fast and or faster than many modern cars, handles beautifully, is comfortable, has good visibility. Like, there's no reason you can't continue to drive that car for the next 10, 12 years and be totally happy. Oh,
yeah. And, one of the things, though, that strikes me, okay, well, it's an older car, right? Like, it doesn't have a screen, which is good. It has the live axle, which honestly is better than I remembered. But when you're driving it, there's things in it that you would never expect from a modern car that just isn't acceptable now. Like, you can hear gear whine, like when you're driving. And I was
sure.
And again, I hadn't been in it in a while, and I got in it, and I was like, oh, you can hear the gears. I was like, yeah, here we go, we're going dark again.
Sorry, wave your hands around.
This is really great when you're underneath a car and then the lights go out.
Sure.
You're trying to kick your leg to trip the sensor. So, it's like in 95, hey, this is a sports car. You're going to get a little bit of gear whine. Today, a new Mustang, you don't hear any of that. That Mustang is amazing refinement, but you're losing out on, like, first of all, that's part of the reason why cars cost more. Is they're all nicer, they're all quieter, they're all more refined. But the other piece is, like, you lose a little bit of that experience because gear whine's annoying, but it also, like, reminds you, hey, you're in a sports car, you're not in a Lexus.
That's right. And that, I think, to that fact, that is a sports car. Make no mistake, with very little done to that car for suspension, that car will shred around corners. I mean, you really don't have to do that much to make it like as a track day car, dude. You give me a weekend with that car, you could turn that thing into a wicked machine.
Yeah, it already does. I mean, the difference in 25 years of modern rubber, this has traction control, so it came with the all-season tires, which were, so, most of the time it ran on less than the grippiest tire, but still, like, a modern tire has so much grip. That's most of where your car's grip comes from. If you want to upgrade your car, the easiest way to do it is tires. And, like, this has already got it. It's like, if I were going to take it to the track, I'd put new pads on it, and they'd be ready to go.
Sure. So, all right. So you have the Camaro, the Beat, the Saab, the Volkswagen, right? And the Alfa.
And the Alfa.
Okay. So we know what the van is for. You're on the fence a little bit about the Camaro. I get it. What would you sell? What 2 cars would you sell to get one car you've always wanted? And what would that one car be?
I mean, I know what the one car is because I think about this. I'm like, the time's going to come.
It's a tough question.
Okay, so circumstance doesn't change, right? Like, I need the Saab is the default daily. It's the
Yep.
It's the if you got to cover miles, it's the car that we drive in the winter. So assuming I'm still in my house, we can live off one daily in the winter. That's another joke. Is like, we have 5 cars, but we only have one car when it's snowing.
Yeah,
but
I know the feeling.
I mean, I think it's got to be the Camaro and the Alfa, and
Okay.
and the car I would get would be an Alpine A310 or a GTA.
Wow. Okay. All right, that works.
There's a million other choices. It's hard to make that decision, but I just keep coming back to it. It's just like, I love that wedge shape. I love the weird Frenchness of it.
Okay.
I haven't driven one. I don't think they're that bad handling, but I love like the danger of a big heavy PRV sitting behind you ready to kick the back end out.
Okay. Do you enjoy the mechanics of it as well? So for instance, when you get a car, do you like being able to do most of your own work to it? Do you like fidgeting with it? Like especially on something like the Beat, is that something you yourself could play with? Yeah,
it's tricky because it's under, it takes a half an hour to get it into service position, but yeah, I mean that's part of it for me. Is I like to work on the cars more out of practicality than anything else. Like,
sure.
I just taught my brother-in-law how to do brakes, and I was like, first of all, this is the gateway to working on a car yourself, and second of all,
that's right.
This is like one of the number one cost savings you can do on your own car.
That's right. Because a brake job is what, $600, $700?
Yeah, and like you can get premium parts for $200, discs and rotors.
That's right.
So, I like that. I like learning about the car more. I like the satisfaction of like knowing that you did something right, because there's always that like. I had a Roadmaster before this. I failed to put the OptiSpark and water pump on the Roadmaster. I tore it off. I put it on. Car didn't start. Towed it to the dealership. Wrote the check. So yeah, I like working on them, and I don't think there's probably a few cars I would avoid, but like most of the time it's like that's the other great thing about driving slightly old cars. Everybody's figured everything out. You know it's going to break. You know what you got to watch for, and somebody has already done the procedure and taken photos. So the Eurovan has a VR6, which is and it's crammed in this short nose. It's not super fun to work on, but there's nothing in there where I go, yeah, I can't do this, or there's very few things. And then you learn about the car, and I love it.
See, I think that's an amazing point, right? Is the car's been out there for a long time. People know the problems. They've already documented the problems. So if you're a new buyer, you could research the hell out of it to know exactly what you're getting into and what you can expect as an owner. And I think that's fantastic. I know, God, I mean, with the stuff, with all my old stuff, the only car that I've ever had that I was terrified to go into was my 928, because that was beyond me, and I was like, if I break something, it's going to cost me thousands, not hundreds, and that was terrifying.
I can recall at least 2 times where I've looked at cheap 928s and gone, is all it needs is the timing chain?
Yeah,
I could do like 3 weekends and get the timing chain, and then I have a 928 for like $2,000.
There is no such thing. Yeah, no such thing as a cheap 928. It just doesn't compute. I mean, trust me, as the guy that restored one, doesn't work. But okay, so let me ask you this. So right now, I mean, because right now it's cold by you, I'm assuming. Like it's
Yeah,
it's
we're
gotta
just
be
starting to
freezing.
thaw.
Okay, just starting to thaw. So when does car culture and when do cars in Michigan finally start to get out on the road? Is it a month? Is it 2 months?
I'd say it's April. The if you run winter tires on your daily, April 1 to April 15 is usually the safe day where if you're going to get snow, you're not going to get stuck. This year was kind of a mild winter, and the salt is mostly rinsed off. It's the salt though, really, is what it is.
Yeah.
You got to wait for the salt to rinse off the roads. So, shoulder season are probably March to end of October, but the meat of it is May to August.
Okay.
And the car shows kick up in like May, and
Right.
like cars and coffees and gatherings.
Okay.
And then but like August is just everything's coming out of the woodwork, and I don't understand. You see it more and more, but you're like, well, what about July? Why is August the month everybody drives? But that's when, if you have a historic plate in Michigan, that's when you're technically allowed to drive it as much as you want.
Okay.
It's like car shows or the month of August, but
Right.
the cars you see don't all have historic plates. There's something else that's just like, maybe that's how long people start late on getting the car fixed, and then August is finally ready to go.
So with the Camaro, you've had that since new.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long time to own a car. Are
Yeah.
you but when you talk about it, you don't seem like super sentimental about it, or like, oh my God, I could never sell this because I've had it for so long. Did it not
I
make
go back and
that
forth
impression?
on that. I go back and forth on that. I mean, it is like powerful nostalgia. Like it sat so long. I had like the dirty white hat from college, and it's in the car now to wear it for like the full on
Yep.
dirtbag frat boy look. But so like there is like, oh man, there was a lot of nostalgia here. I drove the thing a lot when I was younger. But there's a certain amount of, I haven't bought and sold a lot of my cars, and part of the other great thing is there's so many cars out there, and it's okay to say, I drove this, I'm okay with not driving it. The Roadmaster taught me that lesson. I love that Roadmaster. If I hadn't, I sold it because I wasn't really driving it. If I had held on to it, I would probably still, there's a good chance I'd still have it, but it's like, I'm okay. I don't need it. I had the opportunity. It was great. I can live in that space. So that's kind of where I feel about the Camaro is I'm not quite ready to be like, all right, give it to someone else, but I am, I've accepted the thought of like, first of all, no, you don't need to drive, if you don't drive a Camaro again, it's okay.
Right.
If you really want one, I don't think they're going to the moon. You could probably buy one. If you really, really want one and they go to the moon, make the sacrifice to make it happen. So
Okay.
It's a bit of a KonMari thing, right? You free yourself up from the. I mean, that's the other issue with like when I'm like I got to get rid of a car. It's like I don't. It's three fun cars is too many to drive on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Depending on the situation.
Well,
it's definitely too many to keep after.
Well, I mean that's one of the problems is like I bought this year alone four.
Yeah.
Cars.
So how many do you have right now?
I have 8. As of Sunday, I will have 8. And that's 4 too many. Right? Like it's just because it's like you have one ass. It can only go in one car at a time. And if you don't use them, they sit, right? So it's like I have like the 4 cars that I'll always keep. I'll always keep my Charger, my 68. I'll keep always have my Daytona. My wife's Grand Wagoneer, and probably our little BMW E12 that we have, our 79 E12. The other cars I just want to experience. I just want to, I like to, like my Trans Am I bought last May, but I'm going to move that soon. I'm going to sell that soon because like I wanted one. I had to scratch the itch again, and that's the second one I've had. And now it's like, okay, I can move on with that. I just bought a pickup truck last week, and like, I don't know. Like, I'm a sucker when I see a good deal, and it was really difficult for me to pass it up just because it was so painfully clean. I was like, I have to buy this. And then a buddy of mine, this is yesterday. Did I text you the picture of that van?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a buddy of mine sent me a picture of a 70 '76 GMC Vandura shorty van with a porthole window that's been raised up with 36,000 miles on it. And this is a guy that I've known since I was a kid, and he's like, I'll just text this to Musto. I know he's going to buy it. Like, he didn't even think twice about it. And I immediately was like, oh, I obviously have to buy that. And it's like, but the cool part is none of these vehicles are what I would call like an enormous amount of money. And I think that's what people fail to understand. Like, when you say you have 8 cars, well, it sounds like a lot. And I mean, I guess technically it is, but from a dollar value, it's just not that much because none of them cost that much money. Like, I'm into 4 of those cars for less than the price of a brand new Camry. So,
yeah, and I mean, you have the issue. You have space, and that's like, you're like, oh, I just bought a pickup. Like, that's almost why I need to be down to 3 cars so that I can just, pop something on a whim. Because if I had a warehouse, it'd be dangerous. I have places I could stash cars, but I'm still kind of married to the idea of like, I don't want to have to go get it to drive it. And that's
Right.
the main thing with, you said you only have one ass. Like, you have to drive the cars to keep them happy and to keep them in
Right.
good shape. And okay, some people might have cars to not drive them, just to look at them. But the thing that gives us the most joy is going places, meeting people, seeing things, going places with other people in the car, like the experience. And, again, if you're not driving them, it's not good. I think about that a lot because, you see the low mileage cars that come up for auction, and everyone's like, oh my God. I just look at those as sad every time.
Oh, me too.
Like, that car, that's a Stradivarius that was never played. Even if it's a Dodge Omni.
Yeah, dude, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I fully plan to put as many, like, everybody's just like, why do you drive it so much? Like, I posted a picture of the Daytona in Michigan in the salt, and the hate mail that I got was just absurd. And I'm like, if it has rust on it eventually, like, I'll fix it. Like, I'll just cut it out and fix it. Like, it's not the end of the world to me. But I think that so many people don't drive their cars, and they miss out on that experience and the enjoyment of they forget kind of why they actually have them, because they got to rub them with a diaper and keep them so clean.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, like, you're not in charge of having the last Daytona, right? Like,
No, absolutely
if you wreck
not.
your Daytona,
Who cares?
They made what, 200,000 a year in some of the years. Like, there are a lot left. And also, if all of the Daytonas disappeared,
So, okay.
they existed. Like, we
They
don't
existed.
need this. We don't need every car to be kept pure. We don't need every car to be. We don't need every car to survive. Which isn't to say there isn't virtue in, man, look at that beautiful clean stock car. They are amazing.
Right.
But it's also like, that doesn't mean, it's not like losing whales.
That's true. This is very true. Okay. So, that's an amazing analogy. So what do you think now? I mean, doing what we do at Hemmings and following trends and stuff, what do you see coming up next? Right? Like, what do you see people, like, we know overlanding is big / for me, camping, because that's what I'm going to call it. What do you think, what are you starting to see kind of take off in car culture?
I mean, like the van thing, which is sort of an extension. I think it's related to overlanding. It's maybe overlanding light. I think that's, and camping. I think that's part of, like trailers. I think that's something that came about from the pandemic that's going to stick a little bit. It's cool. It's fun. You get to go places that you wouldn't normally see. And there's all these sort of adjacent things. Like there's an app called Hip Camp. It's like Airbnb for campsites that have cropped up to support that. Obviously, trucks are going nuts. But the thing I see, the thing we've been talking about around the water cooler and the thing we've seen is those, the like 90s, the like rounded square trucks. So like your Bronco and the GMs, like I feel like those are hot and those are coming along.
It doesn't make sense to me, man. It doesn't make sense to me. I look at what I paid for my Bronco 2 years ago, and it's more than doubled in value. And I'm like, what? It just, I don't know, man. It's just, muscle cars and stuff I get, but like those, I don't know.
So to that, that reminds me of a different thing I'll come back to. But that's what, it's actually kind of hard to think of a trend, because I don't think there is like a, resto modding has been around. It's continuing to develop. It's going to keep going. But there's a new idea that's like resto modding, right? Like, I guess there's the Safari conversions where you lift a car, but I don't think that's long term, and I don't think that's big.
I don't either. I agree.
So, but everything's getting expensive. So the thing we're going to see, which I think is glorious, is people are going to, people that are new to the hobby or people that can't afford to go to Barrett-Jackson, they're going to find stuff at their price level. And so as other stuff goes up, then you start rooting out other things. So like Malaise luxury, right? Like a big old Lincoln Continental, like those are going to get
Delta
hot.
88.
Yeah, like I think anything that was never appreciated before or never really, or like sneered upon by like, the judges, like the people that deem themselves to be the arbiters of taste. That's the stuff. I think that's just like, you're just going to see more and more like niche stuff where it's like,
yeah,
hey, I found, and we saw that in the auctions where like there was a perfect, like grandma's car 80s Seville, like the worst Seville.
Yeah, I know.
And it went for like 20 grand. And the thing is 20 grand is affordable to a lot of people. And it's
sure.
I'm just going to get the nicest one of this. And then I'm the only one that has it. So that's what I think. I think that's where, and that's kind of why I have the beat too. It's like, there's maybe 500 in the country right now.
Right.
It's like, you're not going to run into someone else who has it. I love it for other reasons, but it's fun to have something unique. So the other thing I was going to say with that cost is like, I have lost my grip on objective reality from looking at car prices all the time.
Yeah,
'cause you're like,
I know.
that's 50 grand. That other one's 50 grand. And, there's just so many cars where you're like, I don't know, I guess it costs that much. That's what it costs. I can't really grasp if it is objectively worth that much or not, because it's worth to whoever can afford it. But I mean, if you want to go pure experience, these things are $8,000 all day, right? If you want something that's like, there are cars where you're paying for like, there is something tangible, right? Like, yeah, Ferraris are maybe not worth what they charge for it, but they're handcrafted, like there's something that comes with it. So yeah, I do the auction show. It's like, I try to thread that line between, I don't want to talk about prices from an investment standpoint, but
right.
We do need to talk about, this is how much these cars go for. If you're buying one, this is how much you should expect to pay. But I don't want to go into like, get them now before they double, or like, flip it.
Right. Sure.
First of all, I mean, you could argue no car is worth 50 grand.
Right, yeah. Yeah. Well, I have a problem with like new car prices. Like, and I feel like, I don't know why, maybe it's my age, but I feel like nothing should cost more than $30,000. Right. So like, it's just because I look at that and I go, my God, there is just so many wonderful cars or trucks that you can get for that price point, whereby the average price of a new car now is close to $40,000. And that's a lot of money. And especially when you talk about people going out and financing them for like 84 months, you're like, what are you doing? Like, if you have to finance a car for 84 months, you can't afford it. That's what that tells me. Like, I don't care if the money is 0%. You can't afford it, Yeah,
I mean, there's a certain amount of like, a lot of people like we're forced into cars in the wrong ways sometimes, and I won't go into that. But there's like, well, I need a new car because I have to get to work, and the gearhead side is like, well, I have 4 cars. One of them's going to run.
right. That's true.
And the sum total is less than 40 grand. So it's
totally
the same thing.
Yeah. No, it makes me laugh, man. I mean, I look at, I probably look at 200-300 cars every single day. Just my downtime. I get off work, sit on the couch, go through the classifieds. I'll go through the Hemmings Classifieds. I'll go through the auctions, and I'm like, all right, I kind of want this and I kind of want that. But I have this thing where I'm just cheap when it comes to stuff. I just don't want to pay a lot of money for anything. Not that anybody does, but like,
We have the same thing with the find of the day. So every day, mostly Dan Stroll and I go through the classifieds and we pick a car, and it goes in the newsletter, it goes on the website where we say, here's the find of the day. And there's like a soft rule of like, usually under 50, almost always under 100. And you're looking through it, you're looking through it every morning. You're like, man, cars are expensive. It's
Yeah.
hard to find something that's like nice and kind of interesting under under 20 grand.
Oh, well, it's funny because I mean, I'm sure you get the question all the time. Like, I have X amount of dollars. What do I buy? And 90% of the time, nobody takes my advice. They just like, nope, I don't care. I'm going to go left and buy something completely, completely
No,
different.
this is, I mean, but this is the curse of like the car aficionado. Now it's like a documentary shoot.
That's amazing.
I would fix it, but you have to pull the covers and do dip switches. But everyone's like, "Oh, you're into cars? Can you tell me what to get?" And it's like, the real question, the real way to approach that is you go, "What are you looking at?" Because they just want to tell you what they're looking at.
Yeah, they've already made. That's when somebody comes up and be like, "What do you think about the Nissan Xterra?" And it's like, "Oh, so you have one, right?" Because I'll immediately shit over most stuff, all over everything, and it's just like you never want to offend people, and I've fallen in that. I've fallen into that trap before.
Are you going to speak ill of the Xterra? Because those are
No,
cool.
I'm actually a fan of the. I'm just using that example, but like, I've had people every time I'm approached with a question like that, and they have a very specific car or truck that they throw out at me. I'm like, well, you already own it, or you're already looking at it, and I'm not going to change your, regardless of what I say. You've already made up your mind. You just want affirmation that you're making the right decision.
So how do you find that that spot between, you have your own thoughts on what you'd get at every price point, whether it's a car or truck. So how do you find like, okay, this is what I think about this person's personality and what they want to project when they're driving the car versus, what they would enjoy? How do you tune your own preconceptions to fit, to find a perfect match if someone's totally open-minded?
My first question is, what do you want to use it for? Right? What do you want to use it for? Mike, I want to get this. I'm looking at this. What do you want your vehicle to do? Do you want it to go off-road? Do you want to go camping with it? Do you want it to be great gas mileage? Do you want to get that, right? And it's kind of like, but when you ask that question, you kind of get, you remember the Homer Simpson car where he put everything into it? People kind of have this idea that one perfect car exists or one perfect truck exists. And a lot of times they don't. So you just try to deduce at least I do, try to deduce what they want to use it for. Then knowing them and their personality, like realistically, like are they really going to go for like the 97 Buick LeSabre that fits all their needs and it costs $3,000? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to want the used Acura TL that might cost $18,000, right? So I
hope TLs are less than that. Those are sweet, but
I haven't figured out the formula yet, to be honest with you. All I know is that most of the time people just tell me I'm incorrect.
Yeah, I always fail because they'll go, "Oh, I need this," and then I'll be like, "Okay, well, like I need 3 rows." Well, how many kids do you have? And it's like, "Oh, I have 2." It's like, "Okay, well, how often are you bringing a play date along, or like how much longer are they going to be in car seats?" And you're like, you probably don't need 3 rows, and they're like, "No, I need 3 rows."
Yeah,
like, well, I have now incorrectly confronted you with your decision and failed to resolve it.
And that's so true, dude. It's like, it's so. I remember I had this discussion with my dad. My dad's been a BMW guy for a million years, and 2 years ago he's like, "I'm looking at this," and he's like, "What car should I look at?" And I gave him like 4 cars, and I'm like, "Whatever you do, like, don't buy another BMW. You've had them for a million years. Like, try a different flavor of ice cream." Blah blah blah. No problem. Out of the question. I go home. He's got another one sitting in his driveway. I was like, well, shit. Why are you like, what? Don't ever ask me about cars again. Ever. About anything. So,
Yeah.
and, I find that a lot with people. But listen, people like what they like. It's just, but if you ask myself, or I'm sure if somebody asks you, you're going to get as honest opinion as we can get. It just might not be the one they want.
Yeah. The guiding principle I have is like, it's a common saying, and I got it from a coworker. The first time I heard it was from a coworker. It was like, if you don't look back on it when you're walking into the grocery store, it's not the right car, right? Like if it doesn't put a smile on your face, there are enough good cars out there. There's enough variety, whether it's new car, lightly used, or classic, you should be driving something that you like.
Yeah.
You're excited to get behind the wheel of. Mm-hmm. Especially now, with a bunch of people working from home, it's like, I don't get to drive that often anymore. I don't have a reason to drive. Like, it's an event. I want to enjoy it.
That's right. So what is the car you most look back at, and what is the car you least look back at?
Oh, wow. probably the Roadmaster. I mean, it was a whole aesthetic, as most look back at. I mean, my wife got throw pillows for me for Christmas one year. We had blankets in it. And you know, the thing with those B bodies is like, they're basically a Suburban, right? Like,
they're amazing. I had a Caprice wagon. Yeah.
They're on a truck platform. They have like 8 inches of ground clearance. Like,
amazing.
They have a huge wheelbase. So like you'll find in the snow. As long as as long as you're careful and have the right tires. So yeah, the Roadmaster is probably the one I look back the most on. Probably the least, I guess, would be the Corsica. I loved it, but I had a Corsica in college. It was an ex-rental car. Didn't have a tape deck, radio only. The AC went out and never charged it. But it was like, it was transportation, and that was the V6. It was before I knew more about fixing cars, and it also had the V6 just like wedged into the engine bay. Like, you needed a special tool to take the belt tension off.
Right.
So that was like, it served me well, but it's not one where I look back and go, there are old junk. The car I had after I'll skip ahead. The car I had 2 cars after the Corsica was a Subaru Legacy Brighton. It was like this price leader. It was a price leader Legacy. No rear wiper, manual locks, manual windows, 2 speakers. I love that thing. It's just like a regular Legacy wagon. But so I'm not saying basic transportation can't be loved, but the Corsica has faded. Like if I saw a clean Legacy on the side of the road and I needed to if I was going to go on vacation and buy a $500 car instead of renting something, I'd take a Legacy in a heartbeat. The Corsica, I'd be like, nah, we'll take the bus.
yeah, that's fine. I feel like most Corsica past owners are probably right there with you on that one. I feel like that's not uncommon sentiment. So, well, Jesus, well, that was a fast hour. My God. Holy cow. All right. So because it's been an hour, we need to do this again. Next time, we need to come back and we need to put down some more topics that are solid. And
I said we didn't even talk about why you should be looking at F bodies. Not just because I want the prices to go up so I can sell mine, but they're. I've done this with the auction video. I did an overview of Corvettes, and a couple other cars where the cars that are getting into collector status now. Corvettes are like collectors, but like these Camaros, it's like the good ones or the ones that have support. You find them at all levels. So there's the special edition ones that are holding price and will go big at auction. There's plenty of supply in the middle stuff, and then if you want to get in cheap or you want a project, there's the beaters. And the F bodies are kind of like that. Like the SLPs and the Firebird WS6s.
Yep.
Those are worth more. But your everyday Z28 or Firebird Formula are totally affordable.
Yep.
And then
they're amazing.
And if you want to do something weird, do a modern small block swap, find an old V6 that doesn't have rust, and you're it's almost free.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's actually very, very true. And I think that, like I said, I mean, having driven those cars for years, and even if they make brilliant first cars, because you could get into them for well under 10 grand for a nice one. But they ride beautifully. They're comfortable. They're plenty fast. I mean, that's got to be a 150 mile an hour car, 140 mile an hour car.
Yeah, it's in the 140s, I think.
Right. That's still pretty fast, And I mean, it still handles. You could still do whatever you want. What size rubber do you got on the back of that? It's like a 275 or something like that?
Well, so I went to the SS tires, which are wider. So it's 275 front and rear.
That's huge. I mean,
might have been 245 stock.
So 275.
Z28 I think is 245 and the SS is 275.
I mean, think about that. So if that's a 275 front and rear, a stock new Dodge Charger RT with another 100 horsepower over that comes with a 245 front and rear.
Yeah.
Right? So you could shoehorn some big meat under that thing, and not only do you have something that looks really, really good, but now you've got this aggressive stance thanks to big rubber. It handles good. I don't know. I think if you ever wanted to sell that would go in a minute. Plus, it's a manual. That's the other thing. And how rare is that getting to be?
Yeah. So, we'll get back on F-bodies. And also hopefully I'll start talking about, I'm going to do the suspension a little lightly. So we'll talk about that. And then, let's do it again.
All right, good. Mike, thanks for coming on, dude. And,
thanks for having me.
I'll probably just talk to you tomorrow at work.
Yeah. Try not to buy anything before then.
Yeah, no promises. All right, bud. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast and hit that subscribe button. And we'll come to you every week.